one of the things that I think that we must do as churches is to stop being duped by the term separation of church and state. That seems something very base, but we have allowed that to permeate our churches to say we shouldn't get involved in politics. But politics, including legislation, all of that has a direct impact on our communities. And we have just come to this point where we just don't think that's part of our collective business as Christians. But we know different, because it is important that churches harness that power to say. That's why when you look at who the Black church was, first of all, it was the arm of education. I mean, the teachers in the churches, a lot of them were the preachers, the wives of the pastor, at that point, right? And so we have to make sure that we keep educating, just like we have done this major push, in Georgia, as it relates to voting and voting rights. And, across the country, you're hearing what's happening here now with Georgia. We still have to teach people that their voice is valuable. So practically, that means that we have to educate people and get very intentional about making sure that people know where decisions are made, and that we navigate our bodies, our physical bodies, to those spaces. For example, we don't have a lot of people who end up as electors because we don't realize that we need to be involved in the Democratic or Republican meetings that are happening in our local communities. So just something as simple as within a church, making sure that your social action committee, your whomever, George, who sits on the front row, make sure that George shows up at some of these meetings, so that whether George knows what's going on or not, people will begin to understand that George is watching. Somebody sent George there. And we need to make sure that we are educating people specifically about where to do those. Same thing with voting. So we'll show up in droves for certain elections. But when we get to those midterm elections, when we get to our local election and we have to put a new judge, we're voting for a new judge or something, like we don't necessarily understand the significance of what that means. And so part of our power as churches is that we educate people. And so as leaders, we must get very meticulous about learning ourselves what happens at these different in this entire legislative process, so that we are able to help our churches members, community members, navigate and know where to show up, what to say, how to do it.